And welcome back. We're moving into our second segment for this morning, another very important topic. We're about to talk Solid Waste Management Authority and update on the 5-year plan. Now, in with us is Lumen Cayetano, who is, of course, the Senior Solid Waste Technician, and Tyronne Chimilio, Communications Officer. Guys, good morning. We're loving your uniform and welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having us.
So, we just got out of a very serious conversation. Something that this entire country has to be cognizant of. Now we're about to jump into another solid waste management. This is happening as we speak. The 5-year plan is in, it's rolling. Talk to us about it.
Okay, good morning to everyone viewing this morning. As you rightly mentioned, the Solid Waste Management Project 2 is ongoing. We completed Solid Waste Management Project 1 for what we call the Western Corridor, and we're now working on Solid Waste Management Project 2, which has the same basic objective as Solid Waste Management Project 1, which is continue to prevent environmental pollution from improper waste management. But our focus has now shifted geographically in terms of us now addressing the needs in what we call the Northern Corridor, the Southern Corridor, and BSWaMa. So the project has 2 components. It has an investment component, and of course it has a capacity building and institutional strengthening component. Under the investment component, we're looking at delivering another 6 transfer stations. One for Punta Gorda, Dangriga, Placencia, BSWaMa, Corozal, and Orange Walk. We're also looking on the investment to close the existing dump site to rehabilitate those. We're looking at providing the designs for the new transfer station along with the supervision of those works, and we're expanding the regional sanitary landfill to accommodate for the waste that would now be coming from the 6 new transfer stations. On the institutional strengthening, we're looking at providing training in terms of landfill operations, transfer station operations. We continue to work with the recyclers through the social inclusion plan, and of course we're big on outreach, communication, public awareness, because that's actually the software that now comes with the hardware that we are working on through the investment component. We're looking at investing another $10.2 million to cover the Northern Corridor, the Southern Corridor, and BSWaMa. We're presenting the works in 3 packages. We've combined Punta Gorda and Placencia. We've combined Dangriga with BSWaMa in terms of the construction, and we've combined Corozal and Orange Walk.
So they have one shared site?
No, it's 2 sites.
Okay.
The 2 municipalities just form a group in one package. So we have 3 packages of works.
Yes.
1, 2, and 3, and we've combined municipality. But each will have its own transfer station.
Okay. Now, let's take a step back, because people tend to have a short-term memory as well. And if we look at the phase 1 of the project, it really transformed what we expected of garbage dump sites. In fact, the elimination of the dump site in Belize City is perhaps one of the easiest examples we can use. But what have been some of the lessons that you've learned in the execution in the Western Corridor that perhaps will now be amended for the rest of the country?
Well, if you look at, say for example, the designs, we improve through the lessons that we learn. The transfer stations that we're currently operating in terms of the designs, part of operation to remove the waste from the transfer station to the landfill, we load. So we have a piece of equipment inside the building that we use to now load the containers through what we call a chute. But what we're doing now, we're improving the designs for the new transfer station. We're doing direct load. So in terms of the elevation now, the transfer trailer will sit at the same level of the tipping floor. So if you have the waste, we will be pushing into the we will be direct loading rather than lifting and loading, which expends a lot of energy, and you require a dedicated piece of equipment in that building for that sole purpose. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. Another thing that we need to be big on for this new project is recycling and resource recovery. Because remember, now we're transferring from PG to Mile 24 Regional Sanitary Landfill, because we'll only have one regional sanitary landfill in the country. We won't have a landfill down south. We won't have a landfill up north.
So they're all coming to the same.
We will be direct hauling from PG to Mile 24. So one of the things that we will be focusing on is to remove as much of the recyclable fraction from the waste. So that will reduce the amount of that material that you will be moving, and it increases the transfer time. So that's another innovation that we're bringing to this new project. And in terms of what Tyronne does, which is outreach, communication, public awareness, he's doing a lot of that with these communities now to get them to understand the system, right, Tyronne?
Yes. When you speak about the lessons that have been learned from the last project, I think when you talk about having the transfer stations and the sanitary landfill, that software component, especially in terms of having the public participate, that's a key lesson I think that I've learned in terms of, like, yes, we do have these commercials, you know, I'm out there, but I think that I need to be out there a little bit more, especially when it comes to working along with the councils and the local persons on the ground. Though I have done it, I think there's an extension that when I did it, sometimes you do it small scale, you have a little bit of effect, and then you don't kind of understand, okay, you need to do a little bit more now. And one of the things that I always enjoy is having these conversations along with persons who I work closely along with in those schools, in those villages, you know, and to see the willingness of how people participate. But once again, you will have only a few persons being concerned, and the others, well, you know, you have to work a little bit harder to reach them. And I always say, because within the scope of works that we do at the Solid Waste Management Authority in terms of operations as well, because since we're operating, doing the day-to-day operations of the entire waste management program right now, sometimes we tend to look at garbage as just a technical thing. You put it, you pick it up, you put it in a bin, and that is it. I'm like, no, you have to. It's more. It goes beyond that. Yeah. And now I'm seeing more schools now, you know, rather than just inviting me, they're taking the time to go out and see how we run the transfer stations, we run the sanitary landfill, and everyone is always amazed, and they're like, oh my goodness, I would never think that a landfill is so important. I'm like, yes, this is how we have moved, we have transformed from having open dump sites to now a transfer station, and having them understand how the landfill is used.
You know, I'm sorry. I like that you mention it, because for a lot of us, traditionally, garbage are just garbage. We've got it, you put it in the garbage bag, and then that's it. And then you feel that, you know what, I've done my part by putting in the garbage. But we don't take our time to manage our garbage, which I think would be a better initiative for the entire country. Now, what are we doing in that aspect? Going out there and seeing it is one thing, but learning to manage it is another. What's going on there?
Our new, as I mentioned earlier, because of the logistics in terms of transfer and how costly that could be if you're just transferring like voluminous material. Under this new system, we're trying to implement a two-stream waste management system, whereby you would have your ordinary garbage and then you would have mixed recyclables. So this is something that we will start with it as being voluntary separation from your household. Under this new project, this is something. Our new campaign will actually be that two-stream approach to setting out garbage. This is one of the things that we will be encouraging under this new project. So we have two streams: your mixed recyclables, your paper, your plastics, your glass, your cardboard, and then you would have now your ordinary garbage. We would even want to take that a step further in terms of removing the organic component, because composting is something else that we will be looking at under this project. Whatever we can do to reduce the volume of waste that we would eventually have to transfer, those are the things that we would be focusing on to make the system work efficiently. So we will be campaigning on it, the separations at that level, and then we will be focusing on those and encouraging people to collaborate with the system in order for us to now be better able to achieve that objective.
Now, if I imagine what it will take to transfer the waste from Punta Gorda, for example, and Placencia all the way to the regional sanitary landfill, that seems very costly. And I want to ask, in terms of this second phase of the project, whether it was explored to have a smaller landfill, perhaps within the northern region and the southern region, to accommodate these areas.
Yes, that was done for both areas, but major issues. Down south, the location that we were looking at for as a potential site for a landfill has a network of streams.
Oh, wow.
So you don't want to contaminate water because to undo that it's virtually impossible.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was explored because all of that key consideration, feasibility, practicality, all of those things, we combine the technical with everything else and we look at it holistically. Up north, the terrain is not conducive to landfilling because it has sinkholes, it's karst, it's limestone. And remember, when you're disposing in landfill, you need a stable base, otherwise it will collapse and we will have problems with because some of the sinkholes may have water in them, may be a part of
So
an
it simply
aquifer.
wasn't feasible.
It wasn't feasible. We did all the studies that would now assist us to make that determination as to whether we would just decide to hope that nothing happens, as opposed to taking it to mile 24, where we know that that is a state-of-the-art landfill, constructed with all the protective barriers in terms of the liner, it has a leachate treatment system. The cost, you would never offset the cost of transferring to mile 24, as opposed to having to deal with a disaster by constructing landfill in what we call an area that has a fatal flaw. Water, karst terrain, it's not advisable to do that.
And the regional landfill can maintain or can be maintained as a site for the waste from the entire country? Like, it's big enough to be able to do that on the long term?
It is. We have 350 acres of land at mile 24.
Wow.
We currently have 10 acres of landfill with about 5 being used, and we're expanding that by another 7.5 acres under this new project.
Nice.
So we have accommodated for everything that needs to be done in terms of the continued transfer and landfilling operations.
So the most important message that I'm hearing from you now is that for people in these regions especially, and it should be adopted across the country, is that we have to think differently of the waste that we produce in our households. One of the things that we know is coming on stream is the ban of single-use plastics and styrofoam. How is that going to help in terms of solid waste management?
First thing you have to look at in terms of recycling is the first thing you have to look at is reduction. How do you reduce? One of the issues that I think this whole situation addresses is that you see a lot of the plastic bags, especially when we do cleanup campaigns. The effects that it has on the environment, it's not good, it's not healthy. And one of the things that I always look at is to see the transformation of our mindset in terms of how we approach. When it comes to waste reduction, you could do something simple as reuse. Say, for example, the mug that you have on this desk. When you go to the shopping market, you use a reusable bag that we used to have years ago.
The old market bag.
The old market bags. And I know sometimes you always think about convenience, but it's an inconvenience to us now because all the resources that you need to dispose of that one plastic bag, people don't look at the cost of it. And I always tell people, waste is a resource. So don't call it just garbage. You have to know how to handle it.
Yes.
Yeah. So we need to look at what we're using. And even the separation process, you said you will attempt to do voluntary. What about, like I imagine in a place like Placencia, for example, where they work a lot with people who've relocated to that particular area and they're exposed a lot more to foreigners. To work with the individual village council, town council, to kind of get them to and start a program that people will separate their waste as well.
Yes, so we will start, the intention is to start with it voluntarily while we adjust the system, because it will go mandatory, will be, source separation will be legislated.
Eventually.
But eventually. But you give people that opportunity while you give the system the same opportunity to come up to speed. Because one of the things that we would be faced with if we were to start with it being mandatory, first of all, they would ask you, who will give me the containers?
Yeah.
Who will now police it to ensure that we are separating? So all of those things we have to look at, and we have to have those things in place. Because Belizeans are clever. They will bring it, they will do it to you every time, because they want to find, we want to find a way around systems.
Yes.
While we have no problem collaborating, but to some extent we have to be forced to do it.
Yeah.
So the voluntary is for it to catch on, because right now one of the things we do at the existing transfer station is we encourage materials drop off. If you, John, from your house decide that you'll encourage your child to separate the plastics and the paper and so on, you could drop that off at the transfer station. We have the recyclers there who would be more than willing to receive your clean, separated plastics and glass and tins and cans, as opposed to them having to now go into the transfer station from within the waste mass and remove these recyclable. We undervalue what they do, and one of the things that we can do to assist them is to separate from the home and bring clean materials to the transfer station. So we're presently encouraging that, and it takes me back to Marlene's question of lessons learned. This is one of the things that we learn, including the recyclers. Make a better opportunity for them. Make what they do easier, and encourage them to continue, because what they do is it's undervalued, but it's very important.
Absolutely. And what we need are multiple filtration systems. If it starts at home and the recycler, the people at the transfer station are also doing an additional filtering, then you'll be able to salvage more of the recyclable materials. Let's talk about people who are interested in making these changes at home. There's also a bit of education in being able to distinguish what type of garbage or what type of waste is recyclable, what goes where. I know usually when you travel, the bins have it clearly marked.
Yes.
But we haven't had that practice, so it will take a bit of education for us. So if I want to start at home, what do I separate?
You start, if you want to separate plastics, the plastics of higher value are what we call the PET, like the soft drinks bottles, and what they call HDP, high density polyethylene. That's like your Clorox bottle, your Suavitel bottle, your cleaning product bottle. Those come in a heavier grade plastic that is valuable. So you could start with those two streams out of plastics, the PET, the soft drink and the water bottles, and the HDP. Glass, well, all glass in every color is recyclable. Ideally, it's better if you group them by color. You do all brown glass. It requires some effort, you know.
Wow.
And sometimes we tend to
let's
be
just start
a
with all
little...
glass together for now, right?
Yeah. All glass is recyclable.
Yeah.
But if you want to sell, if you want to trade glass, it has more value by color.
Okay.
So all white would fetch you a better price, all green, all brown, all blue, and so on.
Okay.
So glass, we could do all glass. All glass is recyclable. Paper, again, all paper without waxy coating is recyclable.
Paper without wax.
There's this film-looking paper that has a layer of plastic on it.
Yeah.
So that's harder to recycle.
Recycle.
In first world countries, they do it because there's a way of stripping the film off it. But we're not quite
We're just
we're
on
not quite
paper
there.
for now.
Yeah, all paper. And even in paper, You could go all white, all color, which would fetch you better prices.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah, so you could do paper.
Okay.
All color for right now.
Yeah.
We're starting baby steps. So everything would be all color.
And
Cans?
compost. That's
Tin cans, there's steel, there's aluminum. But you can just do all tin cans for right now.
Yeah.
Preferably rinsed
And those are
and
recyclable.
clean. Those are recyclable. You could do cardboard. Of course, again, if there's a market for it.
Yes.
We could separate cardboard, we flat pack them, and then those
We're
can
talking
be,
here your cereal boxes.
yeah, you see any grade of cardboard, whether it's the corrugated cardboard that forms a lot of packaging, or whether it's just your simple cereal boxes. So there's several layers. But remember, if we go back, we said we're encouraging mixed recyclable because it could get complicated.
Yeah.
There's some places where they recycle up to 40 different types of materials,
Yes.
but we won't.
We've just distinguished them. So if somebody was to start tomorrow and they want to start small, they have 2 or 3. Can they just put recyclable materials in one? It'll still be some work at the transfer station, but it means you're not picking
It's
out
easier.
banana and beans from your
Right,
paper.
right, right. Any effort at separation at this point,
Yeah.
we encourage, and we also encourage the use of the material drop-off facilities at the
So
transfer
if I
station.
do separate, it's better if I drop it off.
It's better if you drop it off because, again, it's an entire system shift from curbside collection.
Yeah.
Because you would now look at picking up ordinary garbage, say maybe 3 days a week, and picking up only mixed recyclables 2 days a week.
Yeah.
Because there's no use in us asking that you separate and then you come back with one truck and you put everything back in there.
true. That is very
somehow
true.
that doesn't make sense to me, right?
So we can start with that at home, and then also, and I know actually a lot of people are looking at eating organically, being more healthy.
Yeah.
Make your own compost, right?
Yes,
And don't
right.
put it in the actual garbage container.
And that's one of the things that we're also, you made the point of Placencia. It's one of the better areas under this existing project to pilot those things. Composting, a lot of restaurants, people are willing, because we've been there, we've spoken to people who own businesses. We have a very good relationship with the people on the village councils, and they're looking forward to us reaching there in terms of bringing these innovation, encouraging the separation, having them be a pilot area for this to be done. They have the willingness. We just need the infrastructure to come and accompany that, and we take it from there.
Definitely. Wow.
Okay. Well, it sounds like there's quite a lot of work. I mean, 5 years
Yes.
for 6
yes.
transfer stations to be created and the groundwork.
It's not the entire 5 years because we started in
2016.
but in terms of the infrastructure,
Yeah.
we're starting this year, 2018, and the intention is to deliver those facilities by 2020. That's the timeline that we're giving ourselves to deliver those facilities. But we accompany that with the public awareness, encouraging people to collaborate with the system on a whole, with their local municipal authority, because you could have perfect systems, you could have the best infrastructure, but if Jan no want to use it, it's better that your transfer station just sits there, or it's better that you close it.
Yeah.
So we continue. Tyronne has a lot of work to do in terms of engaging, reaching out. And as he mentioned, they're reaching out to us now. People are coming, wanting
That's
to
good,
know
though.
more, wanting to visit, and we welcome. We're open. With a few days' notice, we'll take you to the landfill, we'll take you to the transfer station. We want people to continue to work with us because we're there, we provide our service. As he said, we're operating the transfer stations right now, and we just continue. And again, it has shown that Belize is going in the right direction in terms of waste management. It's a huge commitment that the government has given. We've invested $14.7 million in the Western Corridor, and we're investing another $10.2 million. People would say you could put that money somewhere else, garbage, but it shows a huge commitment on the part of the government, and we're excited that our sector is getting so much attention.
And before I leave, I would like to encourage your viewers. We do have a Facebook page and also our website, and we have a lot of information right there for people to receive in terms of the waste quantities. It's all there on the website. It's BelizeWaMa.com.
BelizeWaMa.com. Okay.
Yeah, our office is in Belmopan. We're located within the vicinity of where the United States Embassy in Belize, Belmopan is, not too far away from the Lands Department. It's 3013 Bougainvillea Street. You can get us at 802-1527, 828-4864.
Okay, well, thank you for coming in and sharing all this information. We appreciate it.
Very welcome. Thanks for having us. We'll be back.
We're going to go ahead now. Next time we come, we'll separate some garbage.
Yes,
we'll really teach people how to do
it.
When we come back, though, after this break, we're going to be talking about some upcoming yoga training that you can take advantage of. So stay tuned.